Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Lumenia ERP Head-to-Head 2021. I'm Ursula Brown, Consulting Manager from Lumenia Consulting, and I'll be chairing the session today. This session is a demonstration of the Epicor ERP system by Aspera, and the topic is finance. I'll shortly hand you over to Paul Cartledge from Aspera, but first a few housekeeping items. You probably heard already from the introduction and presentation, but feel free to say hi in the chat functionality in the right-hand tab of your screen there, or you can interact with each other, post comments there as well as the session goes on. There's also a Q&A tab, and that's very important because if you've got any questions that you'd like to put to the Aspera presenter as you're going through, if you think of anything that you'd like to ask about or to get more clarity on as the presentation continues, please post that question in the Q&A tab on the right-hand side, and I'll do my best to try and collate and have those questions for the end of the presentation, and I'll put them to the Aspera presenter then. You can also record notes. There's a note tab there, and you can record notes there. It's at the right-hand side of the event portal screen. From the notes screen, you can email the notes yourself later to save them, so that's a handy feature. The last thing I'll say is, before I hand you over, is at the end of the session, before leaving, we'd really appreciate if you'd fill in the feedback tab. You can score from 1 to 5. It's very quick, and you earn points for the leaderboard challenge, and have an opportunity to win a prize if you do that. And it helps us then to select the best vendor for the event. So without any further ado, I'll hand you over to Paul Cartledge from Aspera, and I'll leave Paul introduce his team for today. Thank you, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Ursula. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Aspera Epicor ERP presentations. My name is Paul Cartledge. I'm the Customer Engagement Manager at Aspera, and we've got 3 presentations in all, 2 today, 1 tomorrow. And so 10:30 today is the Epicor Finance, then 3:45 is Sales Quotation, then tomorrow at 1:30 we've got the Epicor Production. So we hope you can join us for all those sessions. So if I may introduce our team today, with us we've got Andrew Kehoe is our main presenter and pre-sales expert, and then we've also got Paul Egan, who is our sales manager. So between, we've got a lot of experience of Epicor, and we can answer any questions you need as we go. So now I'd like to do, without further ado, I'll hand you over to Andrew Kehoe, and he can start the finance presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for that introduction. I'm delighted not to have to speak about myself for a change, so thank you for the introduction. So we can launch straight today into the demonstration script for this first presentation on Epicor, focusing on finance. And the first part of the script really is just an introduction to us as a company and to the Epicor organization as well. So I'll just bring us straight through that. Aspera Solutions are a leading Epicor partner on the international front. We are 2020 International Partner of the Year. We've been around since 1987. We are focused purely on ERP, so we are an ERP practice. We don't have any other strings to our bow beyond ERP and all of the supporting products, but we are a one-stop shop business for Epicor ERP, from sales through implementation and ongoing support and development in the product as well. We're very much about long-term relationships with our customers. The very first customer that we had as a business is still a customer today, and it's very much one of our key targets is to maintain that customer relationship, our partnership, on a permanent basis. We've never failed in a project implementation. Again, it's something we're very, very proud of. So we have 100% project implementation success. And we have a range of customers across manufacturing, distribution, services, and what we call solutions, which are those companies who want the type of control and visibility that comes with a fully integrated ERP system, but wouldn't traditionally fit that kind of manufacturing or distribution model. And again, Epicor is fantastic for businesses like that because it is so agile and versatile in terms of the platform and the toolkit that it comes with. So it's highly configurable, and you can modify screens, modify the database and so on without ever touching source code within the application, meaning even in a public cloud environment, Epicor maintains full upgradability no matter what changes you make within, say, business rules and logic, or within screen our database changes. We are supporting customers in lots of different countries, primarily in Ireland and the UK, where the majority of our customers are and where our bases are. But we have many multinationals on our books as well. So we are supporting companies across 14, or I think possibly even 15 countries at this stage. And that's across a mix of on-premise, private cloud and public cloud implementations. There's a slide here just showing some of our customers. It's a select few. And again, I'm not going to talk about any of them individually, but I think the key takeaway from this image is the fact that there are companies in here that are single site, a single location. You're selling in a single geographical market to global multinational companies with businesses and legal entities spread around the world with lots of different statutory requirements, currencies, languages, and so on and so forth. The smallest customer in here would have about 12 concurrent users, and then the largest would have many hundreds, I think 400 or 500 concurrent users on the application at any one point in time. Epicor actually has been benchmarked to 10,000 concurrent users on the SQL test beds in Microsoft in Redmond. So it's highly scalable. And again, within here, we're looking at people who are high volume, low value to very high value, low volume. We're looking at project manufacturers, make to stock, make to order. We're looking at discrete manufacturers, process manufacturers, distribution focused businesses, as well as consulting and service-based businesses. So again, you have that full gambit, and again, all running off of the same ERP application, the same platform, and so on. So again, it's a standard Epicor product, which is highly configurable and tailorable, allowing it to deploy across all of these different types of business, be they large, small, group businesses, and the various different industries involved. Epicor themselves are a very large organization, depending on the metric that is used. They are 5th or 6th largest ERP author globally, with tens of thousands of customers, many thousands of employees. The Epicor product we're looking at today is implemented in over 150 countries. Epicor are turning over approximately $1 billion per annum. And again, they would have many household names within their books, and have a very broad footprint across many industries and geographies, obviously, as we see here. The Epicor application itself is obviously very functional. So this is a high-level product map showing the key areas, and you can see that going around clockwise from top right: finance, CRM, sales, product management, project management, planning and scheduling, supply chain, and inventory and warehouse management, production management, service and asset management, and HR. And again, all of that's embedded in the core ERP application itself. So it's not lots of different applications all bolted together with different databases and so on. All of that's in one application, one database. When you subscribe to Epicor in the cloud, or if you install Epicor on premise, all of that installs, or you get potential access to all of that, and it's all just controlled through licensing. So all of that underlying schema, database information, integration, it's all there for all customers, and you just switch on or off the pieces that you need. So again, it's very simple to change your footprint within the application over time. And you can see at the top, there's cloud and on-premise as options. There is absolutely no difference in the code base or the user experience in Epicor for cloud or on-premise users. And again, we support customers in private cloud or public cloud. Epicor is a Microsoft-based application, so it's in the Azure public cloud, and we also have Azure cloud instances for private cloud deployments as well. Underpinning the product, again, across the bottom, you'll see business intelligence and analytics fully layered into the application, and we'll see that in live product in a few minutes. Global business management, obviously Epicor is in use all over the world, so it needs to be fully compliant wherever it goes. It needs to be able to understand VAT and tax. It needs to be able to understand currency rules and so on and so forth, which then leads into governance, risk, and compliance. So again, a lot of our customers need to be compliant for audit on things like SOX, IFRS, UK or US GAAP, for example, as well as in various industries like aerospace with Supply Chain 21, for example, or in medical devices with CFR 21 Part 11. Most of our customers would have ISO audits and would have ISO workflow controls. And so again, the GRC would be a big part of the underlying Epicor engine. And then the business architecture on which Epicor sits, as I said, is Microsoft. And we'll just talk about that a little bit more in just a second. The focus today is on financial management. So we're in an application that has all of this in it, but our focus is really going to be going into that one space. So the platform, Epicor is a native Microsoft application, so fully consumes the Microsoft technology stack. Which is great because it means that it's very much device independent. So from an end user perspective, while Epicor is using SQL and it's using Microsoft-based servers and technology, we can run Epicor on any type of device. So it can run on PCs and laptops as well as any mobile device through a browser. So again, it's client or browser independent. It doesn't really matter whether you use a smart client or a browser client. The experience is exactly the same, no matter which way you go. So you can run Epicor on smartphones and tablets as well as laptops and PCs. And again, they could be Apple, they could be Android, they could be Microsoft or Word or Windows-based devices. It really doesn't matter. And because of that technology stack as well, Epicor has deep integration into that Microsoft technology sphere as well, into things like Microsoft Office and SharePoint and Power BI and so on and so forth. And again, we'll see some of that as we go through the presentation this morning. Because of that technology stack as well, it infuses SOA and Web 2. So from a collaborative and user experience perspective, a workflow, notification perspective, and so on, there are a lot of really nice tools like Google searching within the application. You can run search engines that operate just like a Google search engine, negating the need to find screens in order to look for data. Composite applications where you're merging, say, Epicor web services and third-party services through RESTful APIs, for example. It has integration into the Azure IoT Hub, so smart devices can talk directly to your Epicor application to monitor, say, machinery on the shop floor or out in a warehouse, or even devices out on customer sites or supplier sites if you have access to those. And again, there's built-in artificial intelligence through the document management and document handling engines within Epicor, as well as through things like the Eva virtual agent, which is like Siri or Alexa, but for Epicor. So you can actually run that on your Android or your Apple device, or through the Epicor Collaborate instant messaging tool. You can ask Eva questions and Eva will jump to response and will guide you through processes in terms of sales and purchasing, inventory handling, and so on and so forth. So what we'll do is we'll just come out of PowerPoint and we'll go into the Epicor application here, and I just have a quick look. So Epicor operates on a concept of home pages or landing pages for users. So the color schemes are highly definable. The structure of the screen that you see here is one that's configured for me as a user. And so to give you just a little handle on the concept of home screens, as a super user, I'm able to access other home pages. So if I change my layout and say, let's look at somebody who might be on the supply chain side within our organization, their home screen in Epicor can look something like this. And you can see that they're looking at, say, purchase order management and approvals, fulfillment and fulfillment planning, for example. We can see things over here around supplier performance management and supplier performance analysis. They can drill down into the warehouse devices and warehouse tools to view those. And then they have little analytical widgets here showing things like their open order counts, for example, and amounts and values, stock positioning, as well as maybe some age payables and our on-time delivery analysis. And so again, these are the inbuilt analytics within the application. So no third party to deliver these widgets to the homepage. And we'll look at that in a bit more detail in a second. Or if I was to look at a different type of user, maybe just to give you another idea. So let's change layout again. And this time we'll go to somebody who's maybe on the accounting team and see what their homepage might look like. And so this person's homepage, you can see here, they're looking at things like journals, AR invoices, cash handling. They're looking at customer and supplier aging, for example, and open GRN balances and so on through their homepage widgets. I'll just come back to me and we'll run the rest of the session from my layout. So back to me. And so my layout, again, you can build these layouts, you can modify and tailor them, you can hold them as role-based ones that are published to roles and functions or individual users. So again, they can be defined at a super user level or at, say, a functional owner level, who can then publish those out to the users within their team. The users themselves can also modify. So if I wanted to edit my layout, I can do. And again, you can control whether somebody's allowed to do that or not. And I can just push this into edit mode. It opens up this little menu over here to the side where I can add links into the Epicor application to query grids like the supplier performance we saw a second ago on the supply chain homepage, as well as adding discovery widgets and dashboards and cards, IoT connections to machines and devices are going out to other applications. So other applications and other web pages, other web applications. So again, I can make my homepage a cockpit, not just for accessing Epicor, but for accessing absolutely anything. And in edit mode, anything that I add or any tiles that I add, you can just drag and drop them and Epicor will snap them into position. They can be resized as well as moved. They can be renamed and adjusted and so on and so forth. So it's very easy for users to tailor up their homepage if you want them to within the application itself. And then it's just point and click stuff. So, you know, if I click on a tile here like this one that I'm hovering over, then it takes me straight to that part of the application. So again, we move away from menu-based navigation very much within Epicor. It's quite rare that an Epicor user ever has to go to a menu to go to a regularly used part of the application. Or I could go to a third-party function like LinkedIn. I could just call up LinkedIn directly from within the Epicor system like that. So, and then the other tiles that you see here, like these widgets, again, this is standard BI. It's real-time database analysis within the application. And when I'm looking at my widgets, by hovering over different areas within a pie chart or a bar chart, it starts to give me feedback on what I'm looking at within that. If I want to drill down and get further analysis, I can just click in, for example, we'll go into this graph because there's a big spike or two big spikes that I want to focus on. So I can pick those up and I can start drilling down into those to have a look at those. And that's looking at information by customer. So those two customers are say, for example, my biggest sales customers at the moment. And maybe we want to see how those sales are operating across other elements. So I just click on my data link and there's all of my measures that I can analyze that data by. So let's look at, say, for example, by product group. And so I'll add product group into the analysis. And now I can start slicing between customer and product group and moving backwards and forwards between the two. And if I was in product group, and there's two big product groups in there, so we can highlight those off within the view if I wish. And I can filter to those, or I can say, look, let's look down at the underlying data within those lines. And again, here, there's all the transactions that are feeding that analysis. And you'll see this little drill out symbol in here, which gives me contextual information for that particular column within the transaction grid. So like if I click on customer ID, I'll get a customer menu over here to get into further customer analysis, or even to get into order management, creating orders or creating quotes. And as I scroll across the transactional grid here, you'll see other things like, say, for example, there's the product. Click on the product, you can see this menu changes now to product analysis, purchase analysis, sales analysis for that particular product. Or if I look at the actual sales orders themselves, and we click, say, on a sales order, and I go to sales order entry, I can get right back to the original document that's feeding this transaction line within the analysis. And this is the beauty of the BI being fully layered into the Epicor application. It means that I can go from a very high level widget or KPI analysis and drill down through that, slice and dice it, get down to transactional level, and from transactional level, get back to the source document, our source form for that transaction within the application itself. So right back to the order, to the customer, to the product, and so on. So again, powerful tool. And we might look at maybe creating a new analysis as we go through the reporting part of the script. Just a quick finish before we start looking at those financial elements. Over here, you obviously have a side menu. So your main menu functions are over here. And I talked about Google searching, for example. And this is like, you know, if a customer calls me up and asks me about an invoice 10122, and I don't have to find an invoice screen or an invoice card, I can just tap the invoice number and that will take me straight to the invoice form or the invoice card within the application. And I can look at those invoice details. I can drill down onto that. I can look at the general ledger transactions. I can call up, say, the invoice document with the attachments links in here to get to the invoice documents and start pulling that information back up within the system and so on. And because this is a Google style search engine, I can look for other things. Like if I, for example, came along here and said, instead of invoice 10122, I'm just going to type, say, washer, and hit go. It looks for that search string and cross-references it all the way across the ERP database, finding results in various parts of the application. And again, I can drill down into those so I can see these are all products that relate to washer. Or if I put in, say, a customer name in here and I do a search on customer, and again, anything that you can do in a Google search, you can do in this. So multiple word searches, or a phrase search in inverted commas, or an asterisk for fixed or for variable length wildcards, or a question mark for fixed position wildcards, and so on and so forth, are all available through that search tool. You also have obviously your full menu. There's my disk that we saw earlier on, the map of Epicor with the menus and the drill downs into those menus where we can navigate through the various menus. As I said, very few people need to navigate through menus. They can get to the key screens on their homepage, or they can search their way to the data they're looking for without having to go to a screen using the enterprise search tool. You also have other nice little things in here, like say collaborate. So there's my instant messaging notification center. So for sharing information and content with other employees and other users of the system. I can also share my analytical widgets in messaging through here. I can get auto notifications and news feeds coming directly from the ERP notification rules engine within the application. I can even link up Teams integration in here so that I can collaborate with customers or suppliers directly through my messaging and notification center within Epicor. And the last thing I wanted to look at here was just, I wanted to call up help, just so that you can see how easy it is to get to help. Help is contextually driven. So depending on where you are in the system or what you're doing, when you click on that question mark, it brings up help that's specific to where you are. You can go into full help navigation if you wish from here. But one of the nice things about this is you can see it does things like it offers you tours with click-throughs. It offers you videos. It offers you articles. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of 2 to 5 minute videos throughout the application. And as I said, help is always contextualized. You can actually filter to just videos or just articles. Or you could go for guided learning, which is an AI built within the application, which delivers you educational content based on what you are doing, or based on what you normally use within the application, or based on, say, new things that have arrived due to a patch or an upgrade, and it triggers you to go look at those through the guided learning functions. So again, there's a lot of other features in there, but there's no time to go into them in a session like this. We might get to some more towards the end, hopefully. Coming back here, we just go to the next part of our script. And so the next piece that we wanted to look at was the financial management and reporting component of today's session. I'm not going to recall this, so we'll just do a quick review. We're going to look at the structure of the chart of accounts and how it's built, how we then can analyze that. So the tools that we have, and there are a number of different tools. I'll show you a number of them today. How you can use those to drill through and drill up, down, and across. And we might take a few examples of various reports in some of the tools that come with the Epicor application, just to have a look at different views of data. We'll do a little focus maybe around cash flow forecasting, looking at the cash flow forecasting tool that is in the Epicor application, as well as ways of building out cash flow forecasts using reporting tools. I think we're unique selling points. Hopefully we're starting to see some already, and we will see more as we go through the presentation. So if we have a time at the end, there are other things that I can drill into around that user experience, and we can come back to that in and around, say, connectivity, mobile, and so on and so forth. And we'll come back to that if we have time. So that's it. So that's the plan for the next half an hour, and then into overflow time questions then just before we finish up. So let's just move on. So to talk about actually the structures, I think it's easier to do this with some pictures. So there's a couple of slides which will lead us then into showing how this is set up within the application itself. So Epicor is a multi-company, multi-site application. There are no limits on the number of companies you can set up within the system. You can run it across multiple instances as a global multi-company application, or within a single instance. So you can have everything sitting on one single database in one cloud or one on-premise. You can have a hybrid approach with some companies, say, for example, in restricted geographies like China, running on-premise, with the ability to VPN and tunnel out to, say, connect to a cloud environment in order to run consolidation and cross-company reporting. So again, we can go fully cloud, we can go fully on-premise, we can go private cloud or a hybrid of any of those, and we can have multiple instances and single instances. In my example here, we have a group organization with 3 operating companies, for example, A, B, and C. Epicor can operate what we call multi-book. And so it means that multiple books can be defined within each financial entity or within each company within the database. So company A is managing 4 individual books, as we see here. A statutory book, for example, they might be a company in France, so they have to run the plan compatible standard chart of accounts or statutory chart of accounts for France, as well as a corporate chart, which they will have, say, within their main book. And they have a management book for reporting purposes and a consolidation book then to consolidate back up to parent, which might have a different structure. So you can see as you go down through each of the 4 books that they can have different currencies. So statutory and main are both running in euros, for example, whereas the management and consolidation book are both running in GBPs. They can also have different fiscal calendars. So maybe the statutory main and management book are running to the tax year, whereas the consolidation book is running to the corporate financial year. And they can have different charts of account structures. So the statutory book is running a statutory COA, the main book is running, and the management book are running the corporate chart of accounts, and the consolidation book is running the headquarters chart of account structure. And in Epicor, then you have parent and child books so that the system knows how to map transactions. So a transaction goes into the system once, and it will then concurrently post into the other books within the company. You can also have, by the way, independent books, so non-mapped or non-linked books that you might want to maintain, say, for reporting purposes or for posting extraneous information into the system that you may use for reporting outside of statutory control or outside of standard P&L and balance sheet control. So again, that's all available within the application. Because it's multi-company, multi-site, obviously there's a whole consolidation engine within the application. And so again, you can have many sources to target. You can also have many targets from a source. And so I could take one company and post a consolidation book to another operational company, as well as post a consolidation to a reporting company. Or I can post up through layers within the organization. So we can see here that company J is consolidating into company H, which is consolidating into company G, and so on and so forth, all the way up through to corporate HQ. So you can create quite complex consolidation maps within the application as well. So underneath all of that, there's obviously a chart of account structure. And so the building of the chart of accounts in Epicor is pretty straightforward. Epicor operates what we call a dimensional or a segmented chart of accounts that's made up of a number of components. So there are segments or dimensions which are standard and happen in background, like company, for example. So we don't have to define company as a segment within the chart of accounts. Epicor does that for us naturally. But what we can define is we can define what we call categories, account categories, which can then be linked to subcategories. And that allows us to create that indented structure in reports, like within my income statement or my balance sheet. So in the example we're looking at here, and it is just an example, this isn't like a standard chart that comes with Epicor. You define your chart of accounts and structure as you need. But in this example, we have, say, a little expense analysis in here, which is made up of property and equipment and contract expenses, and those subtotal and then grand total to the account category. And what we do is we link our general ledger accounts to our subcategories or our categories as required. And so the general ledger account, as I said, is dimensional or segmented. So we can see here in my example, there are 3 segments to this particular general ledger account. So we have our nominal code 6201, which indicates contracts, labor expenses. Then we have a division control. So we can see here to the right of that, it's the CHIG division for both of these rows within this analysis. And finally, I've got a cost center dimension in here. So I've got my corporate cost center and my sales cost center. So that means I can look at a balance from any one of these dimensions perspectives, and I can start any report, or I can look at reports by saying, you know, organize this by division and then by nominal, or organize it by nominal and then by division, and so on. So again, we can slice and dice our way through what's almost like a cube structure with the various dimensions within the chart structure. So what am I allowed to do with Epicor in terms of building this out? So here's an example of a chart of accounts design screen within the application. And reflecting what we just saw a second ago, you can see over here in this area, I have my control segments, which are my nominal code, my division, and my department or my cost center, just like the one that we saw in the example a second ago. These are fixed, what we call control segments are fixed structure. So every single transaction must post to a valid combination of my control segments. But I can also add what we call ad hoc segments or on-the-fly segments. So you can see in the structure of my chart or my design, I have 3 on-the-fly segments or 3 ad hoc or dynamics. So for example, I might want to code a customer ID into a posting. If I wanted to say, for example, I had a big sales team and they go out and they do merchandising at customer sites, or there's a lot of expenses, and I want to get as close to a true P&L for a customer as possible. So I want to code their expenses against the customers that they visit, then I can add customer as a dynamic segment. And then depending on what I'm posting, I can decide whether I want to code a customer into that posting as part of the general ledger account string. Or I can get Epicor to do it through the posting rules engine. So I can tell Epicor, when you're posting from this particular type of transaction, go and find the customer ID from the subledger or from the operational transaction screen where the source data is coming from, and add that to the posting as well. So Epicor can have up to 20 segments within the chart string. So just because you can doesn't mean you should. So I would have said the majority of our customers are operating with about 3 to 4 segments. The most complex business that we support is operating 7 segments. So again, one of the aims that we have is if you can get what you need out of the subledgers and out of operational reporting, that's where we should try and get it, rather than creating very, very complex and highly structured charts with lots and lots of information. You know, the general ledger string can go up to a maximum of 200 characters. We don't want a 200 character string. That would make reporting very, very difficult. But we have the flexibility and capability to do that. And some people will go for something that's a little bit more complex, say, for example, within a book that they're using for specific reporting purposes. But really, the operational books are kept as simple as possible. And as we saw there, segments can be dynamic or they can be control, and that's very important. And Epicor manages balances at the segment level, and it can operate daily as well as period balances per each individual segment within the application. And all of that's then controlled by a set of global configurable engines. So this is how one application, Epicor, can work in over 150 countries around the world. It has a posting rules engine, and there are posting rules defined for different territories, and we can also modify things like the posting rules depending on your needs as a business. We can teach you how to do this yourself as well, because they are super user tools. It has a legal engine for ensuring things like managing integrity and auditability within the system, generating legal numbers against transactions which are completely unremovable from the system. They can be voided with a full audit trail and history behind those. It's got a tax engine. So again, Epicor doesn't have completely different VAT functionality for every single country. It has a standard global tax engine, but it does come with what we call country packs, country-specific functionality packs, and there is one for the UK, for example, with MTD filer. So Epicor is fully certified for making tax digital within the UK and has functionality that's focused on that. Currency engine rounding rules as well, so we can handle the different statutory rounding rules for both currency and tax in different jurisdictions. And we saw the multiple book side of things as well for being able to handle things like, say, a statutory chart of accounts that has to be run alongside a corporate chart of accounts within an individual company within the system. So let's just have a quick look and see how that is structured within the application. So I've got multiple tabs within my homepage. I can drill down into finance. I can go into my chart of accounts definition here and start looking at the setup. So if I do a search, we can see I have 4 different chart of accounts structures within my my application. So if I was looking at my corporate chart of accounts, we can see here that it's got a natural account, my nominal code, and the source, which is like a company code for the source company, and that's used then for consolidation purposes at the corporate level. Whereas if I go to my master chart of accounts, we'll recognize this from the examples we were looking at just a second ago. And so in that, we can see there's my nominal, which is a fixed length of 4 characters. It is not alphanumeric, so it's a numeric code only. So I've made sure of that control, and it's mandatory. So every single transaction must have a nominal code, which is obvious. And it's the only mandatory segment, by the way. So you can have Epicor running with just a single segment, which is your nominal code, and that's the only mandatory one. After that, the structures are completely down to your needs as a business. And so there's my division, which is 2. We can see is 2 numeric only mandatory characters as well. And we can see that there's the symbol that separates them. So the hyphen, which is giving me the structure. So you can have your own separation characters in there as well. And my cost center or my department. If I look at, say, customer, we can see there's other controls down here in this area. So it's saying, you know, for that particular segment, use business entity, the customer ID. So I don't have to maintain a valid list of potential entries for that segment within the finance application or the finance tools in Epicor. It will do it naturally based on the customer list that exists within the customer database. So as customers are added, they will become valid entries within the chart structure for selection in postings. As they become inactive, if they're deactivated, you can't delete somebody who's got transactions against them. But if they become inactive on the customer database, then by default they will not appear in searches when I want to search for them, for example, within a coding process, when I'm entering a journal, for example, but they still will appear in historic reports. And you can also decide that you want to search by an active segment as well, if needs be. Another thing, when we're looking at the chart structure, you will see up here there are flags called global. And so Epicor is a multi-company, multi-site application, allows you to define global records for things like your chart of account structure and customers and suppliers, product codes, for example, currencies and exchange rates, and so on and so forth. And that means I only ever then need to maintain these, if I wanted to, in one company, or I can have global records maintained from one company within my group and still add local only records within the child companies underneath that. So again, this chart of accounts, if it's global and I change a structure within my my master company in Epicor, then that restructuring or those changes are available in the other companies that are mapped or linked to the parent company automatically. Let's just come out of that. So I've got my structure here for my master chart of accounts. So then I can define the different segments that go into that. So up here again, I can pick which chart of account structure do I want to look at. And I'm going to stick with my master chart of accounts here. And which segments do I want to work with? So there's my 6 segments, both my control and my dynamic segments for this particular one. So let's look at the nominal codes, for example. And I'm just going to pick one. I'll pick my, say, my receivables control account on here. So there's my default receivables control. We can have multiple receivables control accounts, and we can have different customer groups posting against different receivable controls. We can have intercompany control accounts and so on and so forth as well. So it's not just one control account for receivables, if that's what you need as a business. And here again, we can see there's my account linked into my current assets category or subcategory from the reporting structure perspective. We can also see useful things in here like this is active. So you can activate and deactivate nominal codes within the system. You can also set effectivity dates. So again, if a code is only going to be in use for a range of dates, you can set those things up within the application. You can put controls around that. So I could say, for example, do I maintain a summary balance for this? So I will only want to see, say, for example, inventory transactions in detail in the inventory reports within the application. From a GL perspective, maybe I only want summary postings, so I don't put too much detail or too many transactions into my nominal code. So one of our largest customers is processing about 20 million order lines per year. And so all of the say the picking transactions that happen within the warehouse and so on, they don't want all of that detail hitting their inventory transactional accounts. It would just be far too much data. So again, they would summarize those. You can also flag codes as allowing statistical data. So beyond just your postings around value, your debits and credits on a financial basis, you can also say an account is only for financial debits and credits. It's there just to record statistical data. So I can do statistical postings and budgets against a code, or I can have it as a mixed code, recording both statistical information as well as financial information. What is statistical data? Well, it can be anything. It can be headcount, for example. If I wanted to record the headcount for every time I post a payroll transaction, like a payroll journal, then I can do that. And I can then track the statistical changes in headcount alongside the payroll expenses over time, for example, or square footage. If you wanted to record square footage and use that as an analysis of, say, utility bills, and be able to use that as a basis then for generating, say, auto allocations within the application, you can do that kind of thing, or units or prices and so on and so forth. So you define whether something is statistical, and if it is statistical, you tell it what the statistical value is measured against, like square footage, eaches, tons, headcount, whatever the case may be, as a unit of measure. We can also define whether nominal codes accept currency postings and currency transactions. So again, while the subledgers will maintain your foreign currency balances against AR, AP, and bank, and so on, you can also post directly into the nominal codes in foreign currency as well. Really useful for things like, say, foreign currency payroll journals, or if I want to maintain a hedge balance in currency against a nominal code and track and trace against that, then I can do that. And I can determine which currencies are allowed to post against which nominal code. And I can also determine how they're handled from a gain and loss perspective and a revaluation perspective. So there is nominal revaluation in Epicor as well as subledger revaluation for currency. I can also do things like apply restrictions. So this is my debtors control account. So we can see that that is restricted from the GL journal function within the Epicor application. So nobody's allowed to open up a GL journal and post to this account. It must come through the subledger. So again, we can build out those kinds of restrictions. So once we have that nominal code set up in my nominal listings, I can then look at, say, the other ones like my divisions and my cost centers. If I wanted to, I can come in here and I can look at the customer segment for this chart of account structure, and I can see all of the different valid entries, whether they're active or inactive within the system. And so this list is automatically generating through my customer tables within the Epicor application. But again, if I wanted to, I could manually create a code in here that I'd want to be able to post against when I'm doing journals as well. So you have that ability within the system. And again, control segments, once you define and start using your chart of accounts, you can potentially add control segments, but there are challenges with that. But dynamic segments can be added at any point in time. So again, as the business changes, as the requirements or footprint changes, or how you need to analyze data changes within the application, you can modify and change your dynamic segments to meet the business need. So once I've got all of my segments defined, then I can generate those out into my chart of accounts. So my general ledger account string is largely governed by the control segments. So if I wanted to have a look in my system at the moment at all general ledger accounts beginning with nominal code 11, I could see here there's a number of them. So if I just pick up those, we'll say OK, and we can see that in list view. And so we can see that Epicor is looking now at, there's my debtors control account, but there's various strings in here with the general ledger account for that against different divisions and different cost centers. So I can have cost center or divisional analysis of this account. And again, every posting then that you do in Epicor must go to a valid set of control segments, and only to ones that are defined within this list. So this is controlling the valid combinations of those control segments within the application. And again, in Epicor, there is a nice tool for generating accounts where I can run this generator. So if I add a segment and then I want to say, okay, generate this segment against these other segments within this range and exclude, etc., I can use the generator to do that. However, a lot of people, what they'll do in Epicor is they'll model out those things, say, for example, in Excel, because in Epicor, you have this right-click function here on any grid. So anywhere where you see a grid and you have grid controls for slicing and dicing, summarizing, grouping and filtering the grid. You also can take that grid and push it out to Excel, for example. So just by right-clicking on any grid, you can open that instantly within Excel. And it shows up in Excel exactly as you had it within the Epicor application. You can modify things in Excel, and you then have a right-click and a paste insert and a paste update function. So again, some companies, what they'll do is they'll maintain a master chart of account structure or definition, and they can model that in Excel, and then they can paste that into the Epicor application. And by the way, paste follows it uses the business objects. So it does all of the validation and audit trail functionality required, but as if a user was typing directly into the application themselves. So I have my chart structure defined within the application. So I'm ready now to start analyzing that. So moving on through the script, we can start thinking about slicing and dicing up the data that we're looking at here. So we'll take a number of reporting examples. I think the first one I'll look at is the standard reporting application within Epicor is SQL Server Reporting Services. So let's just look at a quick trial balance, for example, and we'll run that to a print preview and open that up on screen as a PDF. Okay, and so here's my my trial balance report, and we can see this is now organized by my controlled segmented general ledger account strings, with for each account, general ledger account, the year opening balance, period opening balance, debit and credits for the period and the period closing balance. Nice and simple, very straightforward trial balance view, giving me my balances at the end of the report in totals, and so we can see these coming through to 0, which is exactly what they should be, and my debits and credits for the current period are also in balance, and I'd be very worried if they weren't. Now, again, with reports, all these standard reports within the application, there are controls and filters that you can apply. For example, let's take that category, subcategory structure and apply that to this. This time, instead of running it to a PDF, you can see down here, there's a nice little advanced function where I can come down and say, look, let's look at this as. And so any report that comes out of the system can be run to a PDF, a CSV, EMF, Excel file with various Excel options, a PDF, a Word document, or even XML. So again, it can be really useful for integration as well and workflow through XML feeds and so on. So let's take this as just to say a spreadsheet. So we'll now print my structure trial balance as Excel, and we'll print preview that. And it will open up in Excel now instead of in my PDF viewer. And it will have all of that structuring contained within it. And so now as I scroll down through that, I can see my various groupings within that and my subtotals going down through the balance sheet items and then on into my income statement items through the report. So that's just an example of the SQL Server reporting tool, and that's how most I would call formal or formatted reports are delivered through the application. Again, you have full control over that. You can take those and modify those. You're given all of the tools and training required to do that. You can create new reports from scratch using SQL Server Reporting Services within Epicor as well as needs be. So other types of reports, we have what we call trackers within the system, which are again on-screen inquiry tools. So if I take something like a chart tracker here, and I can then do a search across GL accounts, and I can search by different segments. So I can decide which segment I want to search by. Again, let's just take the same segment, the same charts, general ledger accounts we were looking at a second ago. So I'll take all of these 1100 ones, and we'll add those into my tracker. So I want to review those. Let's just maximize this a little bit. So there's all of the accounts that are in focus. And if I want to then look at the movement summary, I could see the total movement over time across all of these accounts. So there's my current position based on my current year and current period. So that's my position in real time right now. I can look at those specifically on an account by account basis. So as I click through these different accounts, then I'm looking at them by specific account. Or I can take any one of those periods and I can say, actually show me the transactions for that. So I can drill down to the transactions against that particular line. So there's my transactions. There are these AR invoices. Again, I can control the ranges, date ranges and period ranges here if I want to extend or change that. If I wanted to look at any of those invoices, then I can right click. So this is the same context menu that we see within the analytical tool, where I can right click, open with, and I get to that drill down list from within any grid anywhere within Epicor. So I can go straight to the invoice card for the invoice that I'm seeing here. So I'm drilling from my balance down to the transactions, from the transactions to the source document for this, which I can then print in the source document. This is a tracker view as well. So I can drill into the GL transactions. I can take the GL account from there, right click, open with, and go back to the chart tracker for that account. So you've got that circular approach that you can drill all the way down and all the way up. So you can go from source document to balance, or balance to source document, drilling down and up through the application. There is also a financial reporting application, Epicor Fast Close, available with Epicor. So this is a specialized financial reporting tool that we deliver with the Epicor application. And it runs from its own client. It's largely focused around financials. So if I look at the reporting tool here and I say, look, I want to create a new report, let's just click on new. And you can see these are all of the different areas or modules available within that. So general ledger, APAR. Also, by the way, the operational side. So we can look at sales orders and projects, inventory, fixed assets, demand management, manufacturing, banking, drop shipments, and so on. And when I pick on any one of these modules, you see it comes with a whole suite of templates out of the box. And the beauty of this is that you receive these templates, which are like best practice standard views, and you can then modify and tailor those. So you can use those as the basis for building out your own reporting packs within the application. So you can see GL balances, journal details, and invoices, statements, and gross margin by customer, and so on. And again, picking any one of those, let's just look at balances. Let's just take the balance template and I'll run that. And we can see now immediately I'll get a nice view with my company segment, my department, my division, my nominal account, and my balances across here. I got my criteria up here. So if I wanted to look at something like more than just one company, for example, I can come along and say, look, instead of picking just the Aspera Solutions company, let's also add in the Epicor Education company, like so. And we'll just run that here again. And that now we'll see the same report, but this time it's run across multiple companies. So I can see all the Aspera Solution trial balance coming up. And after that, then the different divisions and departments summarized and totaled, and then into the Epicor Education company. And again, I want to maybe get a consolidated view of that. Let's look at a consolidated balance sheet. So what we'll do is we'll just take the company and we'll remove that column. We'll take the department segment and we'll remove that column. We'll take the division and we'll remove that column and we'll run this again. And now we get a consolidated trial balance across those two companies with just one set of balances at the bottom for the two companies. So it's very easy. And if I wanted to then add some more stuff into this, let's just take that out. So we'll take Epic 06 out, the education company. And what we'll do is we'll look at this now, instead of just balance, we'll take balance and we'll take budget. And we'll take the variance and we'll take the variance percentage. So again, this reporting tool is so user-friendly and easy to use. Here, I'm getting that per each and every period. I don't want that. Let's just look at it as a cumulative report. So a cumulative 12-month report, and we'll just run that. And it gives us all of that information now as a cumulative value across that particular company. If I wanted to add or remove anything to the report, I can look at my Explorer and start looking at adding in fields. So there's a drag and drop function to drag and drop fields directly into the report definition through my File Explorer here. You can also do things like adding in totals and groups, so hierarchies and totals. And so I can import the category, subcategory structure from Epicor, or I can build new structures and new nodes from scratch here if I want to report in a slightly different way. Here's one that I built earlier on, which I'm going to add into my report, which is outside of the Epicor chart of account structure that we have within the that we built into our chart of account structure. So now when I run my report, it appears with that structure, those nodes, again, with the drill downs available within them. And again, in the reporting tool, as I drill down, I might look at a value like that revenue value there. I right click on that. I have full drill through capability. So I can drill down into the transactions that sit within that 14,000 balance. And underneath that, I can then see my various invoices. So invoice transactions, let's drill to the invoice detail. So there's the invoice header information, and I can drill on through from that to the individual invoices themselves. So if I wanted to get the invoice lines, right click, drill through, and right down into the lines. So again, I have that full drill through capability within the tool. I can also run my Epicor search engine from here. I can run my Epicor search engine from anywhere. So I'm searching on the customer ID there to come back and look at, say, customer information and further search through customer data through the Epicor search engine. And so again, all of that is available there as well. So there's a fantastic reporting tools and the ability to slice and dice your way through all of that information. Then just moving on very quickly to a little bit about cash flow. So if we wanted to look at cash flow forecasting within Epicor, I've got a cash flow forecaster in here. So again, you can see this concept of books. So I've got my different books. Let's pick my main book. Which budget do we want to use for budgeted expenses? I'll take my original budget as opposed to any of my revisions. What's my current cash position? So we'll put in a cash position for my company. as it is right now, and then calculate out my forecast based on terms in terms of AP and AR, terms with settlement discounts. So it will take that into account as part of the calculation, our average pay days. Let's just use terms and we'll calculate that out within the system. And so there's a cash flow statement showing me my open receivables. My open payables are in here, giving me my net across the two of those. Combines that with my starting position cash up here to give me my available cash. So that's my cash availability. And then my intangibles down here, my open sales orders, open POs, budgeted expenses, received not invoiced, and my shipped not invoiced. That gives me a projected net across those intangibles, which it combines with my available cash to give me my projected cash position, which I can, if I want to, right click and copy it out to Excel as well and manipulate further in Excel, or I can use Fast Close, the Epicor Fast Close tool in here as well to build out cash flow statements and forecasts as well. And you'll see there's a Fast Close ribbon within Excel for opening, running, and processing reports directly from within Excel. So if you have a preference for an Excel client as opposed to a reporting client, you can do everything you need from within there. Yeah.
I'm going to, you've 5 minutes left and we've got a lot of questions.
Oh, do we have a lot of questions? Brilliant. So that's a little bit about cash flow. As I said, other USPs I was going to come back to. There are things in here like Fast Close linking through to Power BI as well. So we can build out analytics through Power BI as well as the Epicor data discovery analytical tools that are within the application as well. But largely, I think I've covered off pretty much everything that we needed to cover within the script. So Ursula, yes, please, I'll come across to you. We'll deal with as many questions as we possibly can at this stage.
All right, we will do. And so thank you, Andrew, a very informative demo. And as I said, you've generated a lot of questions, so well done on that. I'll start with the most popular question here. And I think you may have answered it actually as you went along. It's, if I have multiple entities in different currencies, do I need separate purchase ledgers?
No, you do not need separate purchase ledgers. So you can obviously each legal entity will have its own purchase ledger, but you can have global suppliers, and so Epicor will be able to see and report on suppliers on a global basis. But each entity will own its own AP ledger, but we can report across. We can also do consolidated or centralized purchasing as well across multiple entities with different base currencies. So again, Epicor can pass demand from each company back to a parent company who does the purchasing and tells the supplier to drop ship to each company within the group, maintaining then just that one single AP ledger. But Epicor then will automatically pass the purchase expenses back out to the child companies within the group. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, and one that's somewhere on the same theme. If I have three companies, one with base currency of sterling, one with euro, one with dollars, how would you consolidate the TB in sterling in real time?
So you can run the fast close report there. You can put in currency variables into that to get a real-time soft consolidation in single base currency within the reporting tool. The consolidation engine will obviously do the translations of currencies as well as part of the formal consolidation as a period end piece. But to get real-time soft consolidation, the reporting tools can handle that.
Okay. Thank you for that. The next one says, do all account dimension combinations need to be set up before using them? For example, do I need to set up each nominal division cost center before being able to post to it?
Well, yes. So they must exist before you can post to it because Epicor will control it. It won't allow somebody just to go along and post to something that they've made up while they're doing a posting. It must exist as a valid entry into the structure. For posting. So the validation must be there. But as I said, Epicor can control the dynamic segments if they are linked to the business entities within the application. But again, a senior member on the finance side would normally control the valid entries under things like the nominal codes, for example, or if you're using divisions or cost centers or whatever the case may be, those would have to exist as valid entries. And you would have to have a valid combination of those segments to a general ledger account string for it to be used in a posting action within the application.
There are about another 8 or 9 questions, right? So I'm not going to get to any more, I'm afraid, right? We're going to have to finish at 11:30 on the dot. But we will forward the questions to Aspera and they'll get back to you individually. And also, I'm sure you're all aware, you can also go in and book time directly to talk to Aspera if you'd like, right? If you want to pose them directly to Andrew or Paul, right? So feel free to do that as well. So with that, right, I'm going to close the session for now. So again, reminding you, please, we'd really appreciate if you could fill in the feedback form on the right-hand side of the screen, right? As I said, we'll be looking for the best, it'll be used, your score will be used for the best demonstrator of the session. You can find more information on the E&D ERP vendor section, and that's where you can go and request a callback from Aspera there as well. So last thing then, right, is the next session starts at 11:45, so you've got a 15-minute break now. So thank you very much for attending, and I hope to talk to you all later again today or tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ursula. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.